The Pentagon war room fell silent as the satellite feed showed the hostage situation unfolding. "There's only one man who could get through those defenses," General Harrison admitted, his voice heavy with regret. The same man he had personally discharged 5 years ago, the best operator Special Forces had ever seen. Now, living as a mountain guide in Colorado, Marcus Reyes had sworn never to return. But among the hostages was Harrison's own son, and time was running out. Sometimes, the only person who can save you is the one you destroyed. 5 years ago, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Specialist Marcus Reyes. This tribunal finds you guilty of direct insubordination in a combat zone. You are hereby stripped of rank and dishonorably discharged from the United States Army Special Forces. The words echoed through the tribunal chamber as Marcus Reyes stood rigid at attention, his face a mask of controlled emotion. 12 years of exemplary service ended in disgrace because he had refused a direct order, an order that would have resulted in civilian casualties. General Richard Harrison, commander of Special Operations Command, watched with cold eyes as the insignia were removed from Marcus's uniform. Their history ran deep. Harrison had personally recruited Marcus, mentored him, shaped him into the elite operator he had become. But in Harrison's world, the chain of command was sacred. Questioning orders was unforgivable. "Do you have anything to say for yourself, Reyes?" Harrison asked, his voice carrying across the silent room. Marcus met his former mentor's gaze directly. "I stand by my decision, sir. That village had civilians. The intelligence was incomplete." "Your job was not to question intelligence," Harrison replied sharply. "Your job was to execute the mission." "With respect, sir, my job was to serve my country honorably." Marcus's voice remained steady. "There's nothing honorable about following orders blindly when innocent lives are at stake." Whispers rippled through the assembled officers. No one spoke to General Harrison that way. "You're a disgrace to the uniform, Reyes," Harrison said, his voice cold. "Get out of my sight." As Marcus was escorted from the room, stripped of everything he had worked for, he made a silent vow. He was done with the military, done with a system that valued obedience over morality. He would build a new life far from this world. Present day, Eagle County, Colorado. Marcus Reyes pulled himself up the final stretch of rock face, then turned to help his clients navigate the difficult ascent. The mountains had become his sanctuary, the place where the ghosts of his past couldn't follow. Here, the only orders he followed were those of nature itself. "That's it. Keep your weight centered," he instructed a struggling climber. "Trust the rope, but not completely." 5 years had transformed Marcus. The military precision remained in his movements, but the constant tension had faded from his shoulders. His cabin high in the Colorado Rockies offered the solitude he craved, while his work as a wilderness guide provided enough human contact to keep him from becoming completely isolated. Later that evening, as his clients celebrated their successful climb with drinks at the local tavern, Marcus sat quietly nursing a beer. The television above the bar showed a news report about increased tensions in Kazakhstan, where a research facility had been seized by militants. He barely glanced at it. Those problems belonged to another world, one he had left behind. "Another round?" asked Kate, the bartender who had become something of a friend over the years. "Better not. Early start tomorrow," Marcus replied. As he settled his tab and stepped outside into the cool mountain air, he noticed a black SUV with government plates parked across the street. His body instantly tensed, old instincts kicking in. 2 men in dark suits stood beside it, watching him. "Marcus Reyes?" One of them approached. "We need you to come with us." Marcus's expression hardened. "Whatever it is, I'm not interested." "It's a matter of national security, sir. General Parker requests your presence." "General Parker can go to hell," Marcus replied evenly, "and you can tell him I sent you." The agent didn't flinch. "Sir, there are American hostages, scientists, and one of them is Lieutenant Colonel David Harrison." Marcus froze. David Harrison, the general's son. The kid who had once followed Marcus around the base, begging to hear stories from the field. "The Pentagon has sent their best. They all failed," the agent continued. "You're the only one who knows that terrain, who's operated in those conditions." "You're forgetting something," Marcus said coldly. I was dishonorably discharged. I don't work for the government anymore. Which is why this conversation isn't happening, the agent replied. This is completely off the books, no record. Your discharge status remains unchanged. Marcus stared at the distant mountains, silhouetted against the night sky. The life he had built here was quiet, peaceful, exactly what he had wanted. There are 12 hostages, Reyes, civilians, and they're running out of time. Civilians, the very reason he had defied orders 5 years ago. 1 hour, Marcus finally said. I'll give you 1 hour to explain, that's it. The Pentagon, 6 hours later. The briefing room was filled with the quiet hum of technology and hushed voices. Satellite images and intelligence reports covered the screens. Marcus stood with his arms crossed, studying the tactical displays while pointedly ignoring General Harrison, who stood at the opposite end of the table. General Parker, the current head of Special Operations Command, laid out the situation. 12 American scientists were conducting climate research in the Tian Shan Mountains when their facility was seized by this group. He pointed to images of armed militants. They call themselves the Eastern Shield, extremists with advanced tactical training. And what exactly were these climate scientists doing in one of the most militarily sensitive regions in Central Asia? Marcus asked skeptically. The room fell silent. Parker and Harrison exchanged glances. That's classified, Harrison finally said. Still keeping secrets, General? Marcus shook his head. If you want my help, I need the truth. After a tense moment, Parker nodded. They were testing a new atmospheric monitoring system, dual-use technology. The research is legitimate, but yes, it has military applications. Marcus turned his attention back to the satellite images. You've tried extraction already. What happened? 2 teams, both intercepted before they reached the facility, Parker explained. This group has exceptional counter-surveillance capabilities and intimate knowledge of the terrain. Which is why we need you, Harrison interjected, speaking directly to Marcus for the first time. You spent 3 years operating in those mountains. You know them better than anyone. Marcus's jaw tightened as he finally looked at Harrison. Funny how quickly a disgrace to the uniform becomes valuable again when you need something, isn't it, General? This isn't about us, Reyes, Harrison said, his voice strained. My son is in there, along with 11 other Americans. And why should I care about your son? Marcus asked coldly. You didn't care when you destroyed my career. Because you're not me, Harrison replied simply. Because you've always put innocent lives first, even at personal cost. That's why you're here now. A young intelligence analyst, Captain Sarah Chen, broke the tense silence. Mr. Reyes, I've studied your previous operations in the region. Your approach was unorthodox but effective. We've tried conventional methods. They didn't work. Marcus studied the facility schematics for a long moment. I'll need complete operational autonomy. No oversight, no real-time monitoring, no comms except on my terms. Out of the question, Harrison immediately objected. Then find someone else. Marcus turned to leave. Wait, Parker held up a hand. You'll have it. Complete autonomy. Harrison started to protest, but Parker silenced him with a look. One condition, Marcus added. When this is over, my discharge is upgraded to honorable. My record is cleared. Parker nodded. If you bring those people home alive, you have my word. The preparation room was quiet except for the methodical clicks of Marcus checking his equipment. His hands moved with practiced precision, assembling gear that felt both familiar and strange after 5 years away. The door opened, and General Harrison entered. Marcus didn't acknowledge him, continuing his preparations. The extraction team is ready when you are, Harrison said, breaking the silence. 4 of our best operators, hand-picked for this mission. I work alone, Marcus replied without looking up. Always have. That's not protocol for a hostage extraction. Your protocol's got 2 teams killed already. Marcus finally looked up. The moment I land, I'm a ghost. No team, no backup, no comms until I make contact. That's how I stay alive, and that's how the hostages stay alive. Harrison's jaw tightened, but he nodded reluctantly. The operation launches in 2 hours. There's something else you should know about David. Save it, Marcus cut him off. I'm not doing this for you or for him. I'm doing it for the civilians who didn't ask to be part of your games. He followed you into special forces, Harrison continued anyway. After you left, after I forced you out, he challenged me about it, said you were right. We argued. He transferred to intelligence to get away from my command. Marcus paused in his preparations, surprised. Sounds like the kid grew up. He did, Harrison hesitated. The intelligence about civilians in that village 5 years ago. David found evidence later. It confirmed your assessment. You were right to refuse the order. The admission hung in the air between them. A bit late for apologies, isn't it? Marcus said finally. It's not an apology. It's context. Harrison moved toward the door. Just bring him back. Bring them all back. As Harrison left, Captain Chen entered with a small case. Mr. Reyes, this is the latest SATCOM equipment. I won't need it, Marcus interrupted. With respect, sir, you'll be completely on your own without it. Marcus smiled slightly. That's the idea, Captain. Tian Shan Mountains, Kazakhstan. 200 hours. The Black Hawk helicopter skimmed the mountain ridges, flying dark and low to avoid detection. Inside, Marcus made final adjustments to his gear. The familiar rush of pre-mission focus had returned, sharpening his senses and quieting his mind. 3 minutes to drop zone, the pilot announced through the comms. Marcus checked his night vision gear one last time. The plan was simple but dangerous. A halo insertion 2 miles from the facility, then approach on foot through terrain so treacherous that the militants wouldn't expect an infiltration from that direction. Mr. Reyes, the pilot called back, weather's deteriorating. This is your last chance to abort. Marcus looked out at the snow-swept mountains below. Proceed as planned. Copy that. Good hunting, sir. As the helicopter reached the drop zone, Marcus positioned himself at the open door. The bitter cold and thin air hit him immediately. Below, nothing but darkness and jagged terrain. 1 minute, Marcus took a deep breath. 5 years of peaceful mountain living fell away. He was back in his element, where instinct and training merged into something beyond conscious thought. 30 seconds! He checked his oxygen mask one last time. Go! 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 Marcus leaped into the void, free-falling through the darkness. The silent mountains rushed up to meet him as he counted down in his head, then deployed his chute. The sudden jerk as it opened was followed by the eerie silence of floating through the night sky. He navigated between rocky outcroppings, guiding his descent toward a small plateau. His landing was precise, a testament to skills that hadn't faded despite the years away. As soon as his boots touched the ground, Marcus collapsed his chute, buried it under snow, and oriented himself. The research facility was northeast, approximately 2 miles through terrain that would challenge even the most experienced mountaineers. But for Marcus, the mountains had become home. He moved with confident efficiency, leaving minimal trace as he navigated the treacherous landscape. 3 hours of grueling travel brought him to a ridge overlooking the facility. Using his scope, Marcus surveyed the compound, 2 main buildings surrounded by a perimeter fence, guards patrolling in patterns that suggested military training. He counted 12 guards outside. At least another dozen would be inside. The hostages were likely held in the central building, away from exterior walls. A frontal assault would be suicide, but Marcus hadn't survived years of covert operations by taking the expected approach. The facility had been built during the Cold War. Soviet architecture retrofitted with modern security systems, but every system had weaknesses, and Marcus had spent a lifetime learning to exploit them. He identified the blind spots in the camera coverage, the patterns in the guard rotations, the vulnerabilities in the perimeter. Where others saw an impenetrable fortress, he saw pathways. Patience was key. Marcus remained motionless in the snow for over an hour, observing, calculating. When he finally moved, it was with absolute purpose. A small device planted near the eastern perimeter created an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled a section of security sensors, just long enough for him to slip through. Inside the perimeter, Marcus pressed himself against the wall of the secondary building. Guard chatter on his directional microphone confirmed his suspicions. The hostages were being held in the central structure, separated into two groups. The scientists were in the main laboratory, forced to continue their work. David Harrison was being held separately, subjected to intermittent interrogation. Marcus methodically worked his way closer to the main building, neutralizing two guards with non-lethal takedowns when avoidance was impossible. Each unconscious body was carefully hidden to avoid raising alarms. Access to the main building required a key card. Marcus retrieved one from an unconscious guard and used it to enter through a service door. The interior was a maze of corridors and laboratories. Following the sound of voices, he made his way to the central lab. Through a small observation window, Marcus could see 8 scientists working under guard. 3 armed militants supervised them, weapons ready. The scientists looked exhausted, but unharmed. Now came the most delicate part of the mission, locating David Harrison while maintaining the element of surprise. A conversation between 2 passing guards gave Marcus the information he needed. The American officer is in the interrogation room. Commander Vasilyev is getting impatient with his resistance. Marcus followed at a distance as one guard headed toward what was presumably the interrogation area. The corridor led to a heavily reinforced door with an electronic lock. 2 guards stood outside. This would require precision timing and controlled violence. The approach was calculated. A flashbang grenade rolled precisely between the 2 guards, followed by Marcus's swift and silent takedown before they could recover. The electronic lock yielded to the keycard, and Marcus entered the room with his weapon ready. Inside, David Harrison was secured to a chair, his face bruised from repeated questioning. A single interrogator turned in surprise as Marcus entered. "Don't move," Marcus ordered quietly, weapon aimed at the man's chest. "Marcus?" David's voice was incredulous, barely recognizing his father's former protege through swollen eyes. "They said all rescue attempts failed." "Official ones did," Marcus replied, quickly securing the interrogator. "Can you walk?" "I think so," David said as Marcus cut his restraints. "The scientists, I know where they are. Stay behind me." With David following, Marcus navigated back toward the main laboratory. The facility remained unaware of the infiltration, but that wouldn't last. "Why are you here?" David asked in a hushed voice. "After what my father did to you." "We can discuss family drama later," Marcus replied tersely. "Right now, we need to get the scientists and find an exit strategy." The main lab presented a greater challenge, 3 armed guards and no element of surprise. Marcus formulated a plan, explaining it quickly to David. "Create a distraction by the eastern entrance when you hear the fire alarm. I'll handle the rest." Marcus triggered the facility's fire alarm system, causing momentary confusion. As guards moved to investigate, he entered the lab from the opposite side, swiftly neutralizing the remaining security with precise, non-lethal force. The scientists looked up in shock as Marcus appeared. "U.S. Special Forces," he announced, though the designation wasn't technically accurate anymore. "We're getting you out. Follow my instructions exactly." Gathering the hostages, Marcus led them through service corridors toward an emergency exit. The facility was now in full alert, but the confusion of the fire alarm provided crucial cover. "The perimeter is still secured," David warned. "How do we get past the fence?" Marcus smiled grimly. "We don't. We go under it." The facility had been built with Cold War paranoia in mind, including emergency evacuation tunnels unknown to the militants. Marcus had identified them during his pre-mission research. Leading the group through narrow maintenance corridors, they descended into the underground tunnel system. The passages were cold and damp, barely maintained over the decades, but they offered a direct route beyond the perimeter. "How did you know about these tunnels?" David asked as they moved through the darkness. "I spent 3 years tracking Soviet infrastructure in these mountains," Marcus replied. "Some things you don't forget." As they progressed, the sound of pursuit echoed behind them. The militants had discovered the escape. "Keep moving," Marcus ordered the scientists. "David, lead them. The tunnel exits half a mile east of the facility. Head for the extraction point." "What about you?" David asked. "I'll delay them," Marcus replied, checking his remaining ammunition. "Get the civilians to safety." "That's not the mission," David protested. "We all get out or none of us do." Marcus gave him a hard look. "Now you sound like me. and look where that got me." "It got you here, saving lives," David replied. "My father was wrong about you. Don't prove him right by playing the lone hero." The words struck Marcus unexpectedly. After a moment, he nodded. "Fine, but I'm taking rear position. No arguments." The group continued through the tunnels, emerging eventually into the forest beyond the facility perimeter. The extraction point was a clearing 2 miles east, a grueling journey through heavy snow for civilians unaccustomed to such conditions. Marcus organized the scientists into pairs, ensuring the stronger supported the weaker. David, despite his injuries, helped an elderly scientist who was struggling with the terrain. Twice during their trek, Marcus had to engage pursuing forces, using the terrain and weather to ambush and neutralize the threat. The second encounter left him with a bullet graze across his shoulder, but he concealed the injury from the others. As dawn broke, they reached the extraction point. The helicopter was already waiting, rotors turning slowly. General Harrison himself stood at the open door, scanning the tree line anxiously. When he spotted the group emerging from the forest, relief washed over his face. His eyes found his son first, then locked onto Marcus, who brought up the rear, weapon still at the ready. As the scientists were loaded onto the helicopter, David approached his father. Their reunion was restrained, a brief embrace followed by quiet words that Marcus couldn't hear. Harrison then turned to Marcus, who stood apart from the group, still vigilant for pursuit. "All 12, Harrison said, his voice carrying a rare note of humility. "You brought them all back." Marcus nodded once professionally. "Mission complete, General. Your shoulder. You're wounded." "It's nothing," Marcus dismissed, finally lowering his weapon as the last scientist boarded. Harrison hesitated, then extended his hand. "Thank you, Reyes. For my son. For all of them." Marcus looked at the offered hand for a long moment. 5 years of bitterness warred with the reality of the present moment. Finally, he accepted the handshake. "I didn't do it for you," he said quietly. "I know," Harrison acknowledged. "You did it because it was the right thing to do. The same reason you refused that order 5 years ago." 2 weeks later, Pentagon, Washington, D.C. The ceremony was small and private, not recorded in any official capacity. General Harrison stood behind a podium with Marcus facing him, back in the same room where his military career had ended 5 years earlier. "Marcus Reyes," Harrison began formally, "in recognition of your extraordinary service and sacrifice, and in light of new evidence regarding the circumstances of your previous discharge, I am authorized to upgrade your discharge status to honorable, effective immediately." He handed Marcus a folder containing the official documents. "Additionally, in recognition of your recent actions that resulted in the successful rescue of 12 American citizens, you are hereby awarded the Distinguished Service Cross." Marcus accepted the medal with a complex mix of emotions. The recognition meant something, but it couldn't erase the past 5 years. David Harrison, now recovered from his ordeal, approached after the ceremony. "They've offered me a promotion," he said, "Special Operations Intelligence Liaison." "Congratulations," Marcus replied. "Your father must be proud." "He is," David acknowledged, "but I learned something important during captivity. Medals and promotions don't matter if you compromise your principles." He looked at Marcus directly. "You taught me that years ago." General Parker joined them, shaking Marcus's hand. "Have you considered our offer, Reyes? Special consultant to the Joint Special Operations Command, your own team, your own parameters." "I'm not a soldier anymore," Marcus replied. "Haven't been for a long time." "That's precisely why we need you," Parker countered. "The world is changing. We need people who understand when to follow orders and when not to." Marcus's gaze drifted to where Harrison stood across the room. "And my reporting structure?" "Direct to me," Parker assured him. "No intermediaries." "I'll think about it," Marcus said finally. Later, as Marcus prepared to leave, Harrison approached him one last time. The two men stood in silent acknowledgement of their complicated history. "I was wrong," Harrison said simply. "About the mission 5 years ago, about you." "We were both wrong about some things," Marcus replied after a moment, "and right about others." Harrison nodded, understanding the complexity behind the simple words. Whatever you decide about Parker's offer, your record is clear now. That can't be taken away again. Marcus extended his hand this time. Thank you, General. As they shook hands, something shifted between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but recognition. Two men who had seen the worst of each other, and perhaps finally, something of the best as well. 6 months later, Colorado Rockies. The training facility blended naturally into the mountain landscape, a place where wilderness skills met tactical expertise. Marcus walked among the trainees, correcting a technique here, offering encouragement there. The Mountain Operations Specialized Training Center was neither fully military nor fully civilian. It operated in the gray area between worlds, training both Special Forces operators and civilian emergency responders in advanced survival and rescue techniques. David Harrison, now Lieutenant Colonel, observed from the edge of the training area. "Your first class is looking good," he commented as Marcus joined him. "They're learning," Marcus replied, watching a group practicing high-angle rescue techniques. "Still too dependent on technology, but they'll figure it out." "Just like you did?" David asked with a knowing smile. Marcus shrugged. "I had good teachers, and bad ones. Learned from both." His hand unconsciously touched the Distinguished Service Cross pinned to his jacket, a reminder not of heroism, but of principles maintained despite personal cost. The training center represented a compromise Marcus could live with. He wasn't back in the military, but he wasn't fully separated from it either. He could pass on what he knew, both the tactical skills and the ethical foundation that gave those skills meaning. "My father's retiring next month," David said, changing the subject. "He's recommended Parker as his replacement." "Good choice," Marcus nodded. "Parker understands the new landscape." They walked toward the main building as the sun rose fully over the mountains. The facility had become a bridge between Marcus's past and present, the military precision he had never lost and the mountain peace he had found in exile. "Any regrets?" David asked suddenly. "About coming back?" Marcus considered the question, looking out over the training grounds to the wild peaks beyond. "You can't go back," he said finally, "but sometimes you can find a better way forward." In the distance, a helicopter approached, bringing a new group of trainees. Marcus watched it for a moment, then turned toward the landing zone. There was work to do, skills to teach, lives that might one day depend on the lessons learned here. The mountains had taught him patience and perspective. The military had given him purpose and precision. Now, finally, he had found a way to honor both. If this story of redemption and second chances resonated with you, hit that subscribe button to join our epic life stories community. Have you ever been misjudged or faced difficult ethical choices in your career? Share your experiences in the comments below. We read every single one and would love to hear your story. Would you have made the same choices as Marcus? Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon so you never miss our weekly uploads of powerful stories that explore courage, integrity, and finding your true path.